today. The rand hit a one-month high following the decision of credit rating agency Moody's not to downgrade South Africa. And you'll recall South Africa was hit by a series of downgrades last year, which means that the other two major rating agencies, S&P and Fitch, rate South Africa as junk when it comes to the sovereign rating or the foreign currency rating. Two junk statuses. They also rate South African bonds denominated in rand, which are the majority bonds that the government uses to raise funds, as junk. So not good on that score. But Moody's, you can see a very different picture. It rates South Africa in investment grade, both for the foreign currency and for the local currency. And last year, Moody's basically took a wait and see stance. It held here, and given its note on Friday, the rating agency is now happy with the budget that we released in February, as well as the political changes in South Africa. Markets are cheering the fact that Moody's not only kept the rate unchanged, but it also changed the outlook from negative to stable. That means we are no longer likely to be downgraded when Moody's makes a decision into this junk status. It's likely to keep us there. Well, let's discuss. We're joined on the line by Moody's lead sovereign analyst for South Africa from London, Zuzana Brixiova. Zuzana, thank you for being with us. If we could pin it down to one thing for your renewed confidence, is it a new president?
Well, it's never one thing in our rating. We have several factors that we have been following for some quite time, but clearly the political changes which brought about greater political certainty and reduced policy uncertainty were a very important factor in our decision.
Growth last year also better than expected. To what extent did that play a role?
Yes, so in some areas we saw improvement. So we already saw how we are seeing halt, and we think there is a start to gradual rebuild of South Africa's institutions. Growth also surprised somewhat on the upside for 2017. We projected 0.5 or 0.7%, and instead it's 1.3% in 2017, and that could, of course, extend to the out years as well. And the budget has brought the fiscal consolidation back on policy agenda. But we also see some downside risks, and not the least among them are the contingent liabilities of the government towards state-owned enterprises.
Yeah, you've raised the concern about Eskom. Is that still one of our biggest risks?
When it comes to fiscal situation, yes, this is I wouldn't say necessarily biggest, but it's one of the key risks. There is also a risk on extending the expenditure targets because of the debates on the public sector wage, which could go up, and also the demands that may arise due to increased enrollment into higher education.
A lot of people were wondering how you would deal with the debate on land expropriation without compensation, now ANC policy. How are you viewing that?
There is still a lot of uncertainty that surrounds the reform. So first of all, the reform is not new. It has been around for many years, but it has not been progressing. And of course, with rising poverty, that has become one area of focus. So, but until it's clear what really this reform will encompass, it could be positive for South Africa's productivity, agriculture productivity and growth, or it could deter investors, and that, of course, would have negative consequences.
Are you waiting and seeing? Is there a way that we can deal with land justice in a rate positive way?
Well, there are a number of examples from other countries. Land reform is not unique to South Africa. So, for example, from Central and Eastern Europe, there are examples of successful restitution which really did not derail the reform agenda or growth and other aspects of credit that we look at. So, again, it will really depend how this issue is approached in a comprehensive way.
Final question for you, Zuzana. We're still hovering dangerously close to non-investment grade or junk status according to your ratings. How do we as South Africa start lifting those ratings? What would you want to see?
Well, it's really too early to say. We see two possible scenarios. One is virtuous circle where, the confidence that has emerged is sustained with structural reforms, growth recovers. We think it would be important the growth is above population growth, although the overall poverty starts again being reduced. And the fiscal adjustment is delivered, and importantly, the risk related to state-owned enterprises are addressed. And that's on domestic front, and of course, the favorable external environment is also important. Conversely, if there is delay or if the structural reforms do not take place, and if confidence of investors is reduced, then again, there could be downside pressures on growth that would create challenging fiscal situation as well.
All right, we appreciate your time this evening. That was the lead analyst for South Africa from Moody's rating agency, Zuzana Brixiova.